6 p.m. here in Cairo, time for Egypt News, and we start straight away with the main headlines. President Al-Sisi tells the closing session of the TCAT-7 that the gathering helps in boosting cooperation among the African nations and Japan. Russia announces that the Syrian government forces would cease fire in the province of Idlib. And Lebanon dismisses the Turkish claims that it would receive an Iranian tanker. Welcome back. In his speech at the closing session of the TCAT-7 summit, President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi said that the TCAT-7 gathering helped in boosting cooperation among the African nations and Japan, as it recommended the development of the human resources, where the African youths constitute 65% of the continent's population. The president hailed the Japanese interest in increasing cooperation and communication among the African people and pushing development in the continent while respecting the sovereignty of each country. President al-Sisi renewed the call that it was time for international and regional finance institutions to provide better conditions and incentives to the development projects and programs in Africa so it can pursue the aspiration for development, modernization and progress. The president hailed the fruitful discussions held during the summit, urging the TCAT to continue the support to the comprehensive and the sustainable development in Africa through rapidly achieving economic transformation, improving the business climate and engaging the private sector. President al-Sisi also called for making available in Africa the sustainable communities and restoring peace and security to the continent. He went on to say that implementing those goals needs active follow-up mechanisms so that the TCAT-7 pledges go in line with the visions and the priorities of the African 2063 Agenda and the 2030 Sustainable Development Goals. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi said that the TCAT-7 summit asserted that the African countries and Japan reached the high-ranking level of strategic cooperation. Speaking on the joint press conference attended by the organizing parties of the summit, President al-Sisi reiterated that the African Union will keep on cooperating with Japan to ensure achieving the aspiration of the summit and the African continent's people. The details in the upcoming report.
President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi and Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe attended the closing session of TCAT-7, where the head of state affirmed that the summit is a turning point in boosting cooperation between the African Union countries and Japan, as it directed the attention to develop human resources in accordance with the real situation in Africa and the full priority the continent is given to its youth, which form about 65% of its population. The president also highlighted that the summit also approved what the Africans are eager to implement on the ground via enhancing fields of cooperation in the coming 3 years. President al-Sisi also met with his Zambian counterpart Edgar Lungu. The head of a state hailed the deeply rooted relations between Egypt and Zambia in the light of the importance of the Zambian role in the South African region. President al-Sisi also met with Mr. Masumi Kakinuki, the CEO of Marubeni, one of the biggest multi-activity Japanese companies in the trade, industrial and service fields. The closing session was followed by a press conference with the participation of President al-Sisi, in which he stressed that TCAT-7 proved the distinguished level of strategic partnership between AU member states and Japan, which is considered of the elite ones in our modern world.
After the closing session of the TCAT-7 summit, a joint press conference was held, grouping the gathering's organizing partners. In his speech before the press conference, President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi said that the TCAT reflected the high level of cooperation between the African Union states and Japan, describing it as a very special partnership in the recent history that contributed to achieving mutual benefits among the TCAT partners. The head of state added that the TCAT-7 is an important achievement for all the partners, as it provided a platform for the direct dialogue between the private and the public sectors and focused on several issues of mutual interest for the African Union, including infrastructure, advanced technology, and peace and security. Sisi noted that the partnership between the African Union and Japan contributed to reinforcing the efforts of all the partners to reach practical outcomes that reflect the African continent's priorities for sustainable development, according to the African Union's 2063 agenda. He went on to say that the African Union would continue cooperation and coordination with Japan to build on what has been agreed on at the TCAT summit to achieve the aspirations of the African peoples. He also urged the TCAT to support comprehensive and sustainable development in the African continent through implementing the Yokohama Declaration. President Sisi said he was looking forward to bolstering the strategic partnership between the African Union states and Japan in the upcoming TCAT summit in 2022 that is set to be held in Africa. Presidential spokesman Bassam Radi said that the Japanese Emperor Naruhito received today President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. The meeting was held at the Imperial Palace in the Japanese capital, Tokyo. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi also witnessed the Hideo Noguchi Africa Prize ceremony, which was held on the sidelines of the TCAT summit. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi heads to Kuwait after wrapping up the visit to Japan, attending the TCAT-7 summit. President al-Sisi is due to hold talks with the Kuwaiti Prince Sheikh Sabah Al Ahmed Jabir Al Sabah on means of promoting bilateral relations and the issues of common concern. Egyptian, Russian and Belarusian troops concluded the joint military drill, the Defenders of Friendship 4 in Russia. More than 1,000 Egyptian paratroops, along with the Russian and the Belarusian airborne troops, took part in the exercises. The drill, which lasted for several days, involved many types of armament and medium and heavy military equipment. The participating troops have shown a high and distinguished level of control efficiency. Russia announced that the Syrian government forces would cease fire in the province of Idlib from Saturday morning. This comes as the United Nations Security Council is considering a draft resolution that would call for a truce. The details in the upcoming report.
Russia's defense ministry says Syrian government forces will unilaterally cease fire in the de-escalation zone in Syria's northwest region of Idlib on Saturday morning. The announcement came after Syria and its ally Russia have stepped up an offensive that began earlier this month against the last big stronghold of Syrian rebels. After months of intense bombardment, despite UN warnings of a new humanitarian crisis, the Russian-led alliance was pushing into densely populated parts of Idlib, where millions of people who fled fighting elsewhere in Syria have taken refuge. The ministry also urged armed militant groups in the region to join the ceasefire and join the peace process. Ahead of the Russian announcement, Kuwait, Germany and Belgium circulated a draft resolution to the 15-member UN Security Council late on Wednesday that would express outrage at the unacceptable levels of violence escalating in and around Idlib. The draft resolution, which is likely to face opposition from veto power Russia, would call for a truce in the northwestern Syria, where more than 500,000 civilians have now been uprooted in the course of the offensive.
Lebanon dismissed the Turkish claims that it would receive the Adrian Darya, an Iranian tanker which has been bouncing around the Mediterranean amid American warnings over its valuable oil cargo. Energy Minister Neda Bustani said in a statement that the Energy Ministry does not buy the crude oil from any country and Lebanon does not own a crude oil refinery. She added that Lebanon had not received any docking request from the tanker. Turkey's Foreign Minister Mevlut Çavuşoğlu said that the tanker is not heading actually to Turkey, but to Lebanon. And the European Union Foreign Policy Chief Federica Mogherini said that the European Union will work to preserve the 2015 nuclear deal with Iran and would welcome any moves to add to its conditions. On the other hand, British Foreign Minister Dominic Raab will call for more international support to protect shipping in the Strait of Hormuz when he meets the French and German counterparts for talks about Iran. Egypt's stock market indices rose during last week's sessions, gaining £10.9 billion. The market's capital for companies listed in the stock market reached £770 billion compared to £759 billion the previous week. The stock market's weekly report showed that the benchmark EGX 30 index rose by 3.5% to reach 14,835 points. The medium-capped index, the EGX 70, rose 0.05% to close at 553 points, and the broader EGX 100 index added 0.82% to reach 1,455 points. Tokyo's stocks opened higher, lifted by the positive sentiment surrounding the American-Chinese trade dispute. The benchmark Nikkei 225 index was up 0.86% at 20,637.67 in the early trade, while the broader Tropics index was up 0.79% at 1,502. The Chinese Commerce Ministry hinted that Beijing could break the cycle of tit-for-tat retaliation in the trade war with the United States. And Egypt kept leading the medal tables in the 2019 African Games tournament in Morocco, setting a new record of 229 medals so far against the last record of 217 in Congo's Games 2015. As of Thursday night, the Egyptians gathered 79 gold, 87 silver and 63 bronze medals. Nigeria came second, gathering a total of 103 medals, and South Africa dropped to third with a total of 77 medals. Liverpool centre-back Virgil van Dijk won the UEFA Men's Player of the Year award, edging out Lionel Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo, while Lucy Bronze took the women's prize. Dutchman Van Dijk starred as Liverpool won the 6th European Cup last season with a 2-0 Champions League final victory over Tottenham in Madrid. The 28-year-old is the first defender to win the award since the inaugural edition in 2010-2011. And former Manchester United and France legend Eric Cantona received the UEFA President's Award at the Champions League draw in Monaco. The 53-year-old, who won 5 English championships with Leeds and Manchester United in 1990s and 2 French titles with Marseille, joins an illustrious list of previous recipients, which includes Johan Cruyff, Alfredo Di Stefano and Eusebio. Cantona is the 3rd Manchester United player to receive the award, after Bobby Charlton in 2008 and David Beckham last year. This brings us to the end of Egypt News for today. Thank you for watching and goodbye.